Welcome back, guys. You made it to episode 9. Hope you enjoyed that little teaser I gave you last time. This week we're going to get started on building what we saw in that episode. Obviously, the first thing we see here is we're going to be building a roller coaster. I decided to try to build one of the new single rail coasters, like a Raptor or an RMC Raptor track. I found this extremely difficult to get smooth. And after I built this, I realized that I'm not the only one with this issue on this ride. So I felt a little bit better about that. Now, this is actually the third coaster I tried to put in this spot. First, I tried to do something similar to an Intamin Megalite. Never really got the track layout that I liked. So I switched it up, tried to do the first version of this RMC. But still didn't like it, so I scrapped it, and I ended up sticking with this one that I'm showing you now. Now, there's a couple of things that I really wanted to try to do with this track that I found rather difficult, but I think I just need more time and practice working on banking with this guy. But what I wanted it to do was, after the first lift hill, you drop down, turn around, and then you go straight into a corkscrew or a barrel roll into the first drop, and that's what I did. I could never get it smooth. It took me lots of retracking and attempts to get this to the point where I got it now, but I like the way it turned out. It ended up being pretty good. So after that first drop, you go into an Immelman loop, come back, drop down. On the next turnaround, I wanted you to do a barrel roll into the loop up the hill, and then a barrel roll back down the hill. Again, I couldn't ever get the banking to a point where I was happy with, so I think we just did the barrel roll up and no barrel roll down, which ended up working in the long run. After that, you go into a turnaround around the Immelman, come back, and then you go through a couple turnarounds before heading back to the brake run into the station. So here we're going to get started on laying out some path on this side of the river and the lake. This is just for me to get an idea of how things are going to lay out. So here we're getting started on our station for our coaster. My idea with this is that I wanted you to exit the ride, come down the stairs in the same building, and as you come down the ramp, you enter into the gift shop area. And so that's what I'm attempting to do here. Now, when I was building this building, I wanted it to be kind of the centerpiece of this side of the park. I wanted to have gift shops, food and drinks. You see I'm putting in a bathroom here. Eventually I put in a second bathroom. And I just wanted it to be visible from all over the park, and even walking up to the park from the parking lot, you can see it, so it draws your attention from all over. As Silverette would call it, it's the weenie of the park. If you remember from a couple episodes, I showed you a picture of Lakeside Amusement Park and said that would be an inspiration for future plans. And that is this building that we're working on today. So at Lakeside, when that first was built, you had the initial tower, which we'll get to here in a second, and then off to the side was a casino and a swimming pool, an indoor swimming pool. So I'm going to attempt to somewhat replicate that building, but more as an inspiration, because I wanted a grand sized building on this side that would take up a lot of space and give us a good backdrop to the midway and the coaster. So here's a couple pictures of the tower at Lakeside. This is what it looked like back in the day when it first opened in 1908. Had that big tower on the side with the casino all lit up. I think it's a fantastic looking tower, and again, you see it from all over the place when you're in the area. Now in building this building and trying to get to lay out the way I wanted it to get the path for the shops down below to work out, it took me a couple tries. I had to rearrange a couple things. But first you see here, I'm throwing in some brick columns, adding some decorations to the building, just trying to give it some character, some life, and give it some depth. I threw on the roof here with just normal wood tile shingles. I used 2 different pitches for the lower and the upper half just to give it some more depth. And I thought that using a steeper pitch on the top would make the building look taller than it actually is. And in the long run, I think it worked out. Now when I got to this side of the building, I decided to put these big windows in. Felt like it would open up the interior of the building when you're in there boarding the coaster. It also changed the look of the building a lot. I think it gives it more of like an industrial feeling look, which I'm not opposed to because I like the way the building turned out in the long run. It gives it a different look than the Lakeside building, which I'm fine with too, but still kind of keeps that old turn of the century feeling. So back to the front side of the building, I definitely needed to dress it up a little bit. Found some windows that I liked, went ahead and threw those in, because this would have been, obviously, maybe not obviously, the sign just said, this would have been where the casino was. So I threw in a lot of windows because if you're inside there, you would want lots of fresh air to see outside. Now, over here we're working on the queue for this ride. I didn't show a lot of it because it changes a lot because I was never really happy with it. So now we're going to get started working on the tower. Now this tower for Lakeside was always, in all my research, is referenced to as the crown jewel, which makes sense. So up on the screen I'm going to throw some more pictures up of Lakeside. So the crown jewel, obviously this is that big tower all covered in lights. Here's what it looked like when it was built, and here's what it looks like today. Now it's a little run down in today's times, but we still love it. I tried to replicate something similar to the look of all the lights on the tower in my design, and in the end I'm happy with the way it turned out. Now after I was playing with these lights, I realized that I could have used the lights that flash, and I think that would have been pretty cool, but I really didn't want to redo this entire building, so I left it as is because I was happy with the way it turned out. Now it took a couple variations for me to figure out how I wanted to get the lights set up. Just flipping them around, changing the way they're oriented, and then throwing them on the building and see how it all worked together. I wanted the lights to work cohesively together from one section to the other, and I think that turned out quite well. Now if I wanted to make this tower realistic, I would have made half of those lights black because they're burnt out and don't work. But we wanted to make it look like it's a brand new building, so we made all of our lights work on our tower today. I really like the way that it looks at night here, so we're going to go ahead and keep that. We're going to dress up the entrance where you walk through the tower, dress it up a little bit, make it look a little more welcoming. Now when I stepped back and looked at it, even if I was to put a roof on here, the tower wasn't as tall as I wanted it to be because I ended up making the station building taller than I expected. So I went ahead and raised up the tower, which Works. I like it. In real life at Lakeside, when you walk in the tower entrance, you're at street level, but then you have to go down a flight of stairs because the rest of the park in that area is lower. So it works, and I liked it. And it makes the building look more grand when you have to walk up a giant staircase. And I like the way it turned out. I think it looks super cool. It's and unique because I don't see a lot of that. I don't see it a lot at other parks. Now, put it in the pathway here. I took it both to the left and to the right because I wanted this to be welcoming from all angles of this section of the park. I had to redo this queue a couple times, as you see here, and in the long run I ended up sticking with this layout for the most part, I think. Yeah. I actually changed the layout, the ending layout of the coaster here a little bit, but it doesn't change how the queue line is laid out. Filling in some gaps on the building here. I didn't put any lights down below any farther because it's all going to get covered up by planters and more buildings here in the future. So right now we're just kind of cleaning up some of the gaps, filling in the roof line and making it look presentable from all angles. When I first started putting in these brick pillars on the front, or I guess the back side of this building, I initially thought, oh, I'm just going to put them on the one side of the building where you enter the building to enter the station. However, I realized that it needed to have these brick pillars around the entire building to make it look cohesive, so I ended up doing that. Now, getting it to line up with the tower and make it look good was a different story, but in the long run, again, I liked the way it looked, so I kept what we got. Initially, I didn't want to put these brick pillars on the tower, but because it's in the rest of the casino building and the building butts up to it, I kind of needed to. And it makes the building look more finished and refined, so I stuck with that and I was happy with that. Now, putting in these planters was a little bit of work to get everything lined up with the way I had the pathing set up and the angle of the building. It took me a few tries to get everything to fit, but in the long run, I say that a lot. In the long run, I like the way it looks. So I like the different levels of the planters, and when I get all this brickwork finished up, I think it looks very refined and elegant, very welcoming. I kind of wanted this to look like a Grand Central Station type building. Again, built at turn of the century time, elegant brickwork all over the place, and something that will hold its look throughout time. And I think I achieved that by keeping all the lines of the building and the planters very clean. Nothing's extremely messy. Now for the flower beds here, I'm going to kind of fly through this so I don't bore you too much, but I wanted to keep it very simple. I wanted the lines and the flower design to be very clean, and these flowers being tulips, they are going to come back every year, so it requires very little maintenance. Now, what I think is cool about this section is how I incorporated all this brickwork into seating. So as the guests come up to the platform or up to the area, they have plenty of choices to sit for seating and take breaks. It makes this entranceway look more welcoming, more grand, and inviting when you're comfortable to sit there. Throwing in some lights here. I wanted it very well lit, but still rustic and a little homey. So we'll jump to a night view here in a second. I went ahead, I had to finish off the pathway here and this little grass area, so I threw in some bricks, again trying to keep this look elegant, so I kept the lines similar and I kept the bricks looking the same as I did for the tower. Now as you see here, I think the entrance to this just looks extremely welcoming even at night. I really like the way that this turned out. Extremely pleased with what we've got going on so far. So now we're going to jump over to the back of the building, try to dress up this queue a little bit and make it look a little more welcoming. I didn't want to go too over the top with this because it's not visible from the main midway, but had to dress it up a little bit because as a guest you are going to be back here and see what's going on. So I just went ahead and put in some simple walls and railings to keep people from jumping off and clean this area up a little bit. I like how one addition to one thing leads to me changing the rest of the area. So when I put in those walls, because they were at that height and the way that some of the pieces overlap, I ended up putting it as a base of around the entire building on the platform while you're waiting to get in. Now cleaning up these edges was a little difficult, but I ended up making it work and cleaning it up a little bit. So luckily nobody really sees it, and anything that's exposed and doesn't look great I can cover up with plants and nobody will ever know in the long run. Now as you can see in the background there, the scenery for this coaster is still extremely bare. I just got the ride in, and while I was working on this area for the longest time I did not know how I wanted to theme it or to dress it up. So it's going to stay like this for a little while until, well, I don't think you guys are actually ever going to see me working on that area in the video because I did that off screen. So now we're working on the roof to our tower. I don't think it's exactly the way I want it, but it's better than leaving it open like I originally had it. So I was okay with the way it turned out in the end. I may go back in the future and change it, but I've said that a couple times and I never have. So it's probably going to be, we're probably going to live with what we get. I kind of like the spirals and the spears here, but it looks very medieval castle-y, but it dresses up the roof line a little bit, so I kept it. So I wanted to get another flat ride over here to dress up the area a little bit, and I figured that the Tilt-A-Whirl would be a great ride for this area. We're not going to do a whole lot of work on this ride in this episode, we'll get to that later, but I did want to get it in and get people moving around this area of the park to see how everybody flows. I wanted to raise the ground up a little bit to start giving this area some more depth, so that's why I raised the Tilt-A-Whirl there. Now this area, when I made the river and the lake, this was left a little lower than the rest of it, and I was looking at it, I was like, you know, that would be a great place to put a little seating area, and so that's what I did. Now if you play this game, you know how working with the paths and the groundwork works, and it was a little difficult, so you see me struggling here because once you get that path work down, you can't really change the ground within like a meter, and so it really screws with you sometimes. Now I got this in place, and when I put in the pathway, it changed the path in that whole section to natural, and at first I really like it, and eventually we're going to change it to something different. But this episode we're working on this little patio area, so we're going to dress this up I put a lot of benches and seating and trash cans down here because I want people to come down here and spend time. Put the vending machines to draw their attention because there's not a whole lot of vending in this area yet. Alright guys, so we're getting pretty close to the end of this episode. We got a couple minutes left. But if you liked any part of what you've seen so far in this video, don't forget, please hit that like button down below. Show me some love. Show YouTube that you enjoy what you're watching. And lets me know that you guys are actually enjoying this, and I'll keep making more. Don't forget to subscribe so you see the upcoming episodes that we got going on, because there's a lot going on in this area of the park. Now, I wanted to dress up this area a little bit more. That's why I put in our brick or our concrete walls there. More of like a retaining wall since we're on the edge of the lake. I should probably do a retaining wall around the base of the seating area so it doesn't wash away, but we'll leave that for now. Took me a little bit of looking around, seeing how I wanted this to look. And I definitely needed to dress up the concrete walls a little bit, so of course we had to go in with some creeping vine work here. I really like that these are roses, and it just adds a pop of color to a somewhat bland area. Now back over here, we're adding some more benches around our pathway, and we're going to cover them in brick so that they can sit on them, and it will still look like it's part of the initial building. And of course, we're going to make this into more flower bed area and make it look good. And I believe those pieces are little gingerbread pieces, since none of my planter pieces would fit in there. I had to kind of make do. Again, keeping with the same simple colors, keeping everything looking the same. Now, I wanted to dress up this area in front of our tower a little bit more, make it look a little bit more fancy, and those hedges always does the trick. Very clean, very elegant, and very welcoming. I wanted to keep the same plants that we're already using in this area, so we kept with those little bushes. Now, I switched it to nighttime and realized that you really can't see anything on the building itself. The building's not very welcoming other than the entrance, so we had to dress it up a little bit, put some lights on the outside. I think we put some lights on the inside of our building here too, to light it up a little bit. And I love the way that tunnel through the tower looked. It just glows and super welcoming, super bright. Lit up the top of the building here to give it some more depth. I really like the way that looks. And more lights on this building, the better. Alright, back to our patio area. Gonna clean up some of these edges. Again, if you've been watching this, you know that the theme of this park is natural. I want it to look like this. A lot of this building and the construction has been here for a long time, and we've just kind of built up an amusement park around it. I didn't like, so when I put in that gulping machine on the right, it was raised a little bit, so it threw a curb on there, and I didn't like that, so I used the concrete step or flat piece there to give it a little step up. Now it cuts off people's feet, but that's not a big issue. Again, I wanted to make this more welcoming, so I threw in this slotted roof here, give some shade to the people getting stuff out of the vending machine, and give you some shade to get out of the sun in general. I really like the way that this all turned out. When it costs a lot, it's very simple to make, and when I think we throw in some more vines on the top here, and it just completes the entire look of this area, and I am super happy with it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget, drop a like down below, leave any comments you'd like, and don't forget to subscribe so you catch our future episodes. With that, and this last little bit of plant work, I'm going to leave you. I will see you next time. Thank you.